media.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. When news broke out earlier this week that Cian Bexte had traveled alongside Cat Canada to Tofino to confront Justin Trudeau while on vacation and try to get some answers out of him that Canadians deserved, answers to questions that really aren't usually asked by mainstream paid shield prostitutes in the Canadian media, well, it really threw me for a riff. It really made me ask the question, how was this possible? How was Cian Bexte able to approach the Prime Minister on essentially a public beach in the middle of Tofino without security arresting him as per usual, especially after the treatment of David Menzies when approaching Chrystia Freeland earlier this year? Now, there were a plethora of questions that came up, not only to how did they get access, but what are the costs? What did they endure on this journey? And luckily today here on the show, I have my good friend, Cat Canada, joining me to talk about the backside story as to what took place. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as I said earlier, Cat Canada is going to be joining me today in the studio to talk about this extraordinary interview that took place with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. I know they're extremely busy between her and Cian Bexte. Their phones have probably been jumping off the hook, or emails, however you want to put it in today's standards. But none less more ado, let's bring in Cat Canada. Cat, how are you? Welcome to The Fringe.
Thank you so much. I'm doing great.
Great. It's good to have you back. I know we collabed on a project back at Christmas for how the Prime Minister stole freedom. And now you and Cian Bexte, I know you've done some work with the Counter Signal and you help with their social media and whatnot. I'm not sure the extent of what you do with the Counter Signal beyond that, but Cian brought you along on a trip to Tofino with this explosive bombshell of an interview that just recently dropped out. You guys confronted Justin Trudeau, essentially, I guess they'll say while he was on vacation. And I've seen the interview. I've seen Trudeau trying to walk you guys away, essentially, deflecting because I guess his kids were playing on the beach. But maybe you could elaborate just what brought on the idea and the start of going on this trip in the first place, and what kind of led you guys to Tofino.
Well, as you know, the information about his Tofino trip is very much publicly available. This Prime Minister refuses to take any questions from us, from the Counter Signal specifically. They ignore our emails, phone calls. We're not allowed into any pressers or anything like that. And so we followed a hunch that he might stay in the same place. And we decided to see if we would be able to get a question or two in on a beach if we were lucky enough to spot him.
Right. So essentially, Cian was asking the questions. We saw he had his phone there for his audio. You had the camera. You were operating the camera. In fact, I heard you at one point when Justin Trudeau came over to ask if you're enjoying your vacation, if you're on vacation, essentially playing the victim card throughout the interview that, hey, you're disrupting my vacation with my kids, with my family. Was his family really present while you guys were on the beach? Like, did you guys notice his son first and know that he'd eventually be by, or how did that go about?
I don't know. I didn't see his son. I didn't see any up close faces. I don't really know what his children look like very much, aside from the one picture of him with, I think it was his son going to see the Barbie movie. So I don't even really know. Like, he just walked out onto the beach and we tried to get some questions.
Okay, so my presumptions is, again, this was early evening, somewhere around 6 o'clock, judging by, again, the audio from that interview. What I find amazing is that when I compared, now I had questions when I first seen the post about this interview. In fact, I dropped a video yesterday talking about it, saying, like, how is it possible to get on this beach to speak with Justin Trudeau when we see what's happened to people like David Menzies when he was essentially arrested for trying to approach Chrystia Freeland. Now, much to everyone's dismay, social media is a terrible, terrible place to be. It's very toxic, and we've seen accusations coming out saying that this was scripted. Now, for anybody who's watched the interview, of course you can tell it is not scripted. In fact, Justin Trudeau is essentially playing damage control, trying to walk you guys away from where his family could potentially be off the beach. But I guess the question is how did this happen? How did you guys manage to just get that kind of access while people have their speculation of this being scripted?
Well, as I said, the information about him staying in Tofino sometimes is publicly available information where he has stayed previously. So our hunch was to check out the same place. The beach is not a private beach, it's a public beach. And we did what reporters used to do back in the day. We followed a hunch, we sat down, we patiently waited to see if anything fruitful would come of it, and that's what happened. He eventually showed himself, and um, because, as I said, publicly available info mentioned this particular beach. It's easy to search up a very fancy B&B on that beach. We, like I said, followed our hunch and waited, and sure
Well,
enough,
and
there
it
you
obviously it paid off. I mean, you guys landed the interview of the century. In fact, I would say the interview of the decade, because Justin Trudeau just refuses to speak with any media outlets that aren't government paid, such as, legacy media, CTV Global, CBC, etc. So I mean, kudos to you guys. I mean, that was a fantastic interview. I'm sure Kian must have been doing backflips when this interview concluded. But what were your thoughts when the prime minister approached you and was asking about your holiday? Like, were there things you wanted to say to him that you didn't obviously say because you were controlling the camera? Or, like, what was going through your mind as this interview was conducting?
Well, it was just shocking that he decided to have his security detail stand down. That was the most shocking part because, as you said, he typically doesn't do this. And I think, if you watch the whole thing, at the end, he says, if I've answered some of your questions, hopefully, that's enough for you guys. And that's essentially what happened. I think he just made a calculated move to say, let me speak to them so that they are not back here trying to, interrupt his vacation again. So
Right.
I think
Well, and I mean,
just, yeah, I think
sorry.
he was
So
just saying that, uh, thinking maybe he was quick on his feet to think that, and essentially saying to that at the end of the interview. And obviously, we obliged because we're not in the business of disrupting anyone's vacations. We were just trying to get some questions answered that we haven't been able to get answers to for the last 3 years.
Absolutely. Well, essentially, what's funny about the whole statement of Justin Trudeau, and what I was going to say earlier, is that, he talks about his vacation and how important it is. And I'm not going to debate whether or not the prime minister should have 10 days to spend with his family. But I mean, we've seen him jet off to Jamaica during Christmas break with his family to lavish resort style B&Bs, all at the taxpayer's dime, nonetheless. But the prime minister essentially has an obligation to answer the media, and you can't pick and choose like an all you can eat buffet as to who you're going to answer and who you're not going to. It just surprises me the extent that you guys had to go to in order to just simply attempt to get a few questions answered from Trudeau. Now, I personally speculate that, again, he answered those questions calculatedly to avoid, again, like you said, more appearances on the beach, or perhaps more outlets getting wind that Trudeau was there and showing up, to put pressure on him, because essentially he's been in hiding since the summer began. How was Kian feeling after the interview? Like, what was he as surprised as you were when Trudeau left that you guys got those questions?
I mean, we were the most shocking part was, like I said, is the fact that Trudeau agreed. And based on my speculation and his words at the end, is that he just wanted us gone. So shock would probably be the number one thing because, as people may know, uh, he has journalists, roughed up, arrested, etc. So my initial thoughts were maybe it's because I'm a woman, so like it would look really bad if he did that. But then again, that's not like it stopped him before. So I can't speculate as to why, other than my thoughts that I've shared so far. And we were just surprised. I think just the overall feeling was shock and surprise.
Right. Now, my big question going into that. Now, I know you're a mother as well as an active journalist, both on Twitter and with the Counter Signal now. So, were you guys prepared about the possibility of being arrested, or did that discussion come up at any time?
Um, No, that discussion did not come up. I didn't even think about it personally. If I had to retrospectively think about it, I probably would have been prepared to be arrested. Just I didn't break any laws. I was on
Right.
a public beach. You're no one is entitled to privacy on a public in a public space. Those are the rules. I didn't make those rules, and so yeah, the thought didn't really cross my mind because this was one of the first times I've actually ever done anything like this, other than by accident grabbing footage of something crazy. So yeah, I hope that answers that question. I
Oh,
don't really.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It essentially, so what my concern would be is that Justin Trudeau, like you've nailed it on the head. There is no privacy on a public beach. However, we all know that when people are protesting in Ottawa, Justin Trudeau doesn't follow the rules, and when it comes to how he treats the media, especially independent media, he certainly does not follow the rules or would exploit any kind of legal stature that he could. So, I mean, again, kudos to you guys for going in and conducting this amazing interview. As we wrap up here, Kat, there's one thing I wanted to touch base on, and that is, in fact, that when this video was first announced, when this interview was
Mhm.
first announced, we had essentially heard that this was going to be exclusive to countersignal members. Now, Kian charges a very low cost for the information that you get from the countersignal for the work that you guys put in. Much like other outlets, this is to support the branch and make sure that you guys can continue to make content, make great content. Now, Kian, of course, had said that he was going to make his financials public, which he has on Twitter, and we can just see. I'll click on this, and we can kind of zoom in and see here. I mean, there's WestJet Airlines, there's Courtyard by Marriott, Tim Hortons, WestJet Airlines, Tofino Motel, Harborview. Um, I mean, there's. I'm assuming here Harbor Air is the chartered flight you guys had to take, the float plane.
It's a float plane. Yeah, it's not chartered. It's anyone can get on board. It's just buy a ticket and fly.
Oh, okay. So you just buy a ticket and go. Okay. So his statement here says, "Here's a screenshot of my credit card. These flights are one way. I still need to now leave Vancouver Island to get home." And this is the one thing that kind of shocks me um, when we talk about the business of independent media. When we talk about anybody doing any kind of business when it comes to online social media, I know I faced many scrutinies for putting out even parody children's books for consumption from people, that it's grifting, that it's essentially begging for money. And I've always said there's nothing wrong with a business trying to pay its employees, and nobody goes to their job and works for free. Have you seen a lot of backlash from people when it came to essentially making the call for this video to be, I guess, funded in order to be viewed? I know now it's gone public, but before that, I mean, did you guys see a lot of pushback for that?
Yeah, there was some. People were upset that it was behind a paywall. Um, and I just reminded them that the CBC gets $1 billion of our taxpayers' money every year, whether you consent to it or not. If you don't want to pay for independent media, and if you don't want to support the voices that hold our politicians to account, don't. But it just,
Absolutely.
yeah, your money goes to a propaganda outlet, whether you like it or not. But you have absolutely a choice which outlet you support and which outlet you consume. So, for me personally, I vote with my dollar. If I see outlets that are telling the kind of stories that the average Canadian like myself, who's a single mother with two kids cares about, I support that outlet. So, and if an outlet can't support itself, how will it produce anything of relevance? How will it pay the staff? How will it pay a social media coordinator or a writer or a cameraman or an editor? Or how will we fund any of the expenses associated with grabbing that 10-minute video?
Mhm.
Without our supporters, without our loyal base of readers, we don't exist. It was shocking for me to see such a backlash with that. Like that, I don't really understand, because you're free to not. You're completely free. You're not under compulsion like you are with the CBC. So
Hmm.
as to speculation why that's happening, I'm not even sure. I think people will just be mad about I think people enjoy being mad about anything and everything on Twitter, personally. So, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you don't ambush a high-ranking politician on a plane, let's say, people are upset. If you do ambush the highest-ranking politician in a different place, people are upset about it. So I think most level-headed people with some modicum of discernment will understand these basic facts and this logic. It's just perhaps the demoralized or trolls that kind of push that rhetoric that it's grifting. I have children to feed. I have a job to do. Sorry that that hurts your feelings.
Right. Well, and essentially that's kind of the message that I've always tried to convey that look, anytime somebody said to me, oh, you make money from YouTube, you sell books or you're just grifting it. I always say, look, go to your job, work for free. Tell me you can still pay your bills and live. This is no different than anything else. But again, you guys really knocked it out of the park. You guys have done a fantastic job here. And of course, I, for one, I mean, I've supported the counter signal for quite some time. I'm going to continue to. I would advise anybody watching this interview to go over to supportthesignal.com, sign up, get a membership over the counter signal, give them some love because I mean, look, if you guys are going to continue to put out content like this, I mean, bravo! I think it's fantastic.
Thank you.
I hope we can expect more great things from you guys coming down the line. I know Kian's a really nail biting journalist. He gets right in there. He's not afraid to ask the tough questions or put himself in risky positions when asking those questions. And it's definitely refreshing to see that because, again, with the press gallery and their funding from the government, everybody plays it safe. We see the softballs all the time, and man, I can't wait to see what you guys have coming next. Kat, where can people find you on social media?
So if they can see my handle there at the bottom of my screen, that is my handle for all the socials. I'm mainly on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram. I'm also on YouTube. I'm not too active on YouTube currently. I hope to change that in the future. That's where people can find me. And yeah, to your point about Kian, he did an amazing job. He's obviously very skilled at that style of journalism, which I am very envious of, because if that was just me, I would not have been able to do that. I was just glad that I was there and able to document it because, it's a bit perhaps more intimidating for a woman to still push on against security and ask some really tough questions of the most powerful man in Canada. So I'm in awe of that, of the ability to do so. Very impressed by that, to say the least.
Absolutely. Well, I think Canadians, especially those who have the same opinions and views as the counter signal or as the viewers of this channel, we're all very proud of the work that you guys have done. And again, for putting yourselves out there and being vulnerable like that, because again, like I said, we know Justin Trudeau doesn't exactly like to play by the rules when it comes to the law, when it comes to how he conducts himself. So again, this absolute bombshell of an interview that nobody expected. Congratulations again. I wish you guys all the success in the world, and we look forward to seeing what you have next. Cat Candidate, thank you for joining me today. Thank you for stepping into the studio. Hopefully, we can catch up again soon in the future.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Cat Canada coming in to clear the air essentially on what happened in this amazing interview with Justin Trudeau. Again, like I've said many times, nobody saw this coming. It was absolutely unreal. It's weird that we cover such an event like this, like it's some big deal, simply to ask the prime minister's a couple of questions that aren't softballs, that aren't left leaning. I mean, is anybody else shocked here? The one thing I am glad that was cleared up that I did want to talk about, the reason I mentioned anybody's kids being around was essentially, I know sometimes reporters know what the family looks like, or they might have said, hey, there's so and so, so Justin might be by. No, that wasn't the case. In fact, as I spoke to Kat after the interview, she actually had told me, like, look, never really once saw, we saw people in the water, but they looked like tiny ants that, we didn't see anybody. We simply were just up and down the beach near this B&B, hoping that Justin would emerge at some point, kind of like a groundhog. What is it, Puxatawny Phil on Groundhog Day? I mean, that's essentially, they lucked out, and this was an amazing interview. But let me know what you guys think about the interview down below. Did you watch the interview yet? Have you had a chance to check it out? If you haven't, make sure to go back in the channel, because I do critique and go over the interview in depth prior to this video launching, so make sure to check that out. Again, go and show the Counter Signal some love over at supportthesignal.com. Make sure you become a member over there. It does help them out. It does help recuperate some of their costs, because boy, not only were those receipts the one-way receipts that we showed earlier, but I know they've incurred a lot more as a result. These things do cost money, and if we want to see more interviews like this, more gotchas, comes with a price, ladies and gentlemen, but it's always great to support like-minded media outlets. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, I hope this video has earned your subscription if it's the first time here. If so, please click that subscribe button and turn on your bell for notifications. Join me live here on the channel each and every Friday night for our live streaming show, Friday Night Fringe, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, every Friday here on the channel. I look forward to talking to each and every one of you outside of these videos and learning what you guys have to say inside of those streams, and I look forward to seeing each and every one of you, including up to this current Friday. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and enjoyed this video. I'll catch you on the next one.